Hello everyone, I'm Emanuele from Liga Hyrule. Tears of the Kingdom unearths the roots of Calamity Ganon in an ancient conflict between Roru, the first king of Hyrule, and Ganondorf, a rival king who attempted to usurp him. In many ways, Roru is characterized as a good king. He is noble, kind, and self-sacrificing, and he acts for the long-term benefit of the various groups of people living in Hyrule. In contrast to Roru, the antagonist Ganondorf is an evil king who started a war because of his pride, ego, and greed. Roru and Ganondorf represent different styles of authority, both of which are grounded in Japanese fantasies of cultural identity. I'd argue that, in the end, neither king is fit to rule present-day Hyrule, which is why it's appropriate that the game ends without any call to rebuild Hyrule Castle or the centralized government it symbolizes. Roru represents a golden age in Japanese culture when many arts now seen as traditional originated. This golden age is closely tied to Nintendo's home city of Kyoto, which is associated with the culture of the imperial court before it moved to Tokyo in 1868. Because Tears of the Kingdom is fantasy, the visual metaphors of Roru's character design are mixed, but his connection to a bygone golden age is tied to two symbols. The Magatama jewels referred to as secret stones, and the Kersensui dry landscape gardens of the Shrines of Light and the Temple of Time. The secret stones that Roru gives to the six sages have the distinctive kama shape of a Magatama jewel, one of the three sacred symbols of Shinto. These three symbols are as follows. A mirror represents clarity of heart. A sword represents the power to protect the weak. And a jewel represents the materiality of divine blessings. These three objects also serve as the regalia of the Japanese emperor, whose role was historically to perform ritual prayers and thereby serve as a symbolic bridge between the world of humans and the world of gods. There is nothing sacrosanct about Magatama jewels. At various street fairs and tourist areas throughout Japan, you can buy inexpensive polished quartz and jade Magatama to attach to phone charms or friendship bracelets. As a result of its relative ubiquity, this particular shape of gem has both a historical and a pop culture association with being a magical stone bestowed by the gods on special and worthy individuals such as, most famously, the first Japanese emperor. Along with his Magatama secret stones, Roru is associated with Kersensui dry landscape gardens of the old imperial capital. Note, for instance, the front courtyard of the Temple of Time from the beginning of the game. The visual motif of raked white gravel punctuated by standing rocks also appears in various permutations within the Shrines of Light established by Roru and Sonia. To give an example, this is what the player will see if they circle back behind the entrance of the Roru's Blessing shrines. This style of dry landscape garden is frequently referred to as a Zen garden because of its association with large Buddhist temples in and around Kyoto. The most famous example of this style can be found at Ryoanji in northwest Kyoto. The philosophy of these gardens meshes well with the philosophy behind the Zelda series, which Shigeru Miyamoto has described as his attempt to create a Tsubanua miniature garden for the player to explore. In the same way, dry landscape gardens represent a larger landscape portrayed on a much smaller scale. The rocks in the gravel are meant to represent islands on the ocean, or perhaps mountaintops rising above the clouds. Another common interpretation of these gardens, and one especially pertinent to Tears of the Kingdom, is that the rocks are the dorsal spines of a dragon swimming through the sky. Although dry landscape gardens do have ties to Buddhist thought, they were primarily created by wealthy lords residing in Kyoto during the 15th century. This was a politically unstable era, and these lords needed to make a show of their wealth and cultural legitimacy. Unlike in China, where Chan Buddhism was largely anti-establishment, Zen Buddhism was the domain of the wealthy educated elite in Japan. Many of the rocks used in Zen-style gardens were imported from China and Korea at great expense, and lords competed to secure the services of celebrity landscape designers. Even today, the The late medieval culture represented by dry landscape gardens is associated with the prestige of Japan's former imperial capital of Kyoto. City where the location of the shrines is the same as the location of the shrines in Tears of the Kingdom. Roru is therefore associated with nobility and a certain air of sophistication. In the Japanese script, he is unflaggingly polite and addresses everyone Zelda, Ganondorf, and Link alike with the sort of clean language associated with people of high social standing. To put it simply, Roru is a perfect gentleman. He is the personification of the aristocratic virtues of the traditional Japan of the late 15th century, during which the wealthy filled the capital city with gardens while countless wars ravaged the countryside. In contrast, Ganondorf is a personification of the warrior culture of Eastern Japan, especially as it was exemplified by warlords who competed for territory outside the capital before the establishment of the Tokugawa shogunate at the beginning of the 17th century. Oda Nobunaga was the most notorious of these warlords. He was infamous for being aggressive but effective, and his military prowess and ruthless tactics have been memorialized in a wealth of stories whose lineage stretches to the video games of the present day. I believe that Nobunaga served as a model for Ganondorf, who seeks to take advantage of the instability of the newly established Kingdom of Hyrule to expand his own territory. Like Roru, Ganondorf's character design contains mixed visual metaphors, but I think it's fair to say that his top knot and costume are meant to evoke a samurai who has thrown off the kimono sleeve covering his sword arm. This is a style still worn by practitioners of Japanese fencing and archery, which are common extracurricular activities in many high schools. Appropriately, Ganondorf fights with a tachi katana, a naginata spear, and the body-length longbow used in Kyudo archery, all weapons associated with the martial arts of Japan's medieval military elite. As if to cement his connection to Nobunaga, Ganondorf speaks in period drama samurai Japanese that demonstrates neither the elegance nor the poetry of his incarnations in previous games. He seems to lack both regret and awareness of the consequences of his actions, and he is concerned primarily with hierarchy, conquest, and the thrill of battle. As was arguably the case for Nobunaga himself, there is no endgame for Ganondorf, only scorched earth. Ganondorf has absolute faith in his own power, and he views other people only as subordinates or enemies. According to his value system, there is no merit in compromise. He simply takes it for granted that he will win. It makes sense that the aggressively bloodthirsty Ganondorf is a villain, but neither is Roru innocent. With all his magic and culture and imperial splendor, Roru failed to understand that the system of power he created could easily be turned against him. A nation politically defined by a central authority whose rule is justified either through military conquest or the cultural chauvinism of tradition is not sustainable, and the legacy of such a kingdom can only be tears. This is why Hyrule Castle remains in ruins at the end of Tears of the Kingdom, and this is why the game's central hub is a research station populated with people from all over the world. This is why Zelda doesn't attempt to re-establish Hyrule as a kingdom, and this is why it's so important to her to understand the reality behind the myth of the nation's history. I think this is also why the grand mythology of Hyrule's origin is far less integral to the game than individual acts of community building. From participating in a local election in Hat Eno to helping Lurlin recover from a disaster to volunteering in towns facing issues like water pollution and climate change. Both Roru and Ganondorf are compelling in their own ways, but it's not a tragedy that both characters are gone at the end of the game. When Zelda gathers with the regional leaders of Hyrule during the closing cutscene, they promise each other that they will work together to ensure a lasting peace that neither of the two kings made possible. The legacy of the past still affects Hyrule, but Tears of the Kingdom suggests that it's the duty of the younger generation to understand where this legacy came from in order to avoid the mistakes of their ancestors and move forward in a more hopeful direction. What do you think about? Do you agree with us? Let us know by leaving a comment here under the video, and please continue to support us. See you soon.